So throughout the Bible, there are dreamers, and we're going to talk about them in a little bit, but there are two scripture texts we're going to use today about dreaming and about not necessarily our dreams, but God's dreams for us. The first is from Ephesians 3, verse 20. Now, glory be to God, by God's almighty power at work within us is able to do far more than we would ever dare to ask or even dream of, infinitely beyond our highest prayers, desires, thoughts, or hopes. And then the second is from Jeremiah 29. And I want to note that this is often a text that we quote on days like today. And if you read the whole of Jeremiah, these are folks who are having some incredible struggles and challenges. So if your life is in that condition right now, I want you to remember that this is God speaking. For I know the plans I have for you, says the Lord. They are plans for good and not for evil, to give you a future and a hope, to give you a future and a hope. Today we're talking about God-sized dreams, not our limited vision, but God's vision for us. And sometimes those dreams come about in the oddest ways. And well, this clip really captures perhaps the oddest dream in movies in recent history. So that's Ray Kinsella. Ray had kind of a rough, wild life and decided it was time to settle down. So he buys a farm in Iowa, and he's going to farm corn in Iowa. But if you remember, he starts hearing this crazy voice telling him, if you build it, he will come. Preachers for years since this movie has come out has been preaching, if you build it, they will come. And It's this dream that begins to unfold in the midst of the movie, and eventually he ends up taking away part of his crop, and people think he's crazy, right? And he puts in a baseball field, and it's pretty amazing. Well, have you ever had that happen to you? Have you ever had a time in your life where you hear a voice or you have a nudge to do something, and it just won't go away, and you hear it again and again, or you experience again and again? I actually had a similar experience to Ray's. I don't know if it was an actual voice or in my head, but I can tell you it was in 1991. In 1991, I had graduated from Butler University, and like most vocal performance majors, I had 3 jobs. I had a band that worked at night, late at night, and we sang at different Union Station, if you remember that. I also was the children's choir director and started a children's choir program out at a church in Geist. And then my third job, where I spent most of my times, was in pensions and retirements. And I actually worked for 2 different companies in the city of Indianapolis, of which I will not name because perhaps you have money with them, and I can guarantee you I lost you money. Why? Because I hated my job. I positively hated my job in pensions. I hated it so much that when a memo came out that said, hey, we're looking for people to study the new changes in the government, because it was about that time that the government started making some changes in pensions and retirements, and we need some government, it was somebody to sit down and read these documents and try to help us figure out how to move this on. And it came with like donuts and stuff, so I said, oh, I'm there, count me in. So I and really just one other person agreed to do this program, and then at the end of the program, I was a government document specialist in pensions. Pretty powerful, pretty powerful. Still hated the job I did after it, but it was still pretty powerful. And what's so interesting is when you're a government document specialist, you become a little bit more marketable, and so I left one place in Indianapolis and I went to another. At this time, I was still trying to figure out what was, you graduate from college, you expect something big to happen to you. And at that same time, I had another offer from a company in Chicago, Harris Trust. And I had this offer from them, and it was actually a pretty great offer. But at the exact same time, I had an offer from St. Luke's United Methodist Church to become their children's choir director. And it was a job, unlike my other children's choir director job, that would allow me to work just about full-time. And it was only about $45,000 less than the offer in Chicago. So what does one do? So as a young college graduate, I, of course, said, I got to take the job in Chicago, right? Leaving behind what I love to do, my band, leaving behind the children's choir, leaving it all behind. So I was on my way to Chicago to negotiate the last bit, the moving, how you're going to move, and getting my keys and getting the employee handbook and all of that. I was on my way to go to that meeting. It was probably about 9 or 10 o'clock a.m., so of course it was 7:30 a.m., and I was sitting on the Dan Ryan making my way to that meeting, and I was sitting on Dan Ryan, which is usually what you do on the Dan Ryan Expressway on the south side of Chicago, when I heard a voice say, "Really? Really, Carolyn? Are you really going to do this the next 40 or 50 years of your life? Because no matter where you live, you have to wait in traffic to get into the loop. Really? I have put in front of you everything you wanted. You love music, you love kids, you want to figure out where I'm calling you next. Really?" I was trying to ignore that voice. I didn't want anything to do with that voice because the dollar signs were working. And no kidding, I had made one of those mixed tapes, because that's what you did in the 90s, right? You make mixed tapes. And on my mixtape comes "Another One Bites the Dust." This all was happening right around 55th Street, Stony Island, right around in there. And I have to tell you, by the time I got it to 22nd Street, which was probably another hour, and the Lakeshore Drive exit, I turned around and I came back to Indianapolis. And as they say, the rest is history. Has that ever happened to you? Have you ever had a nudge? Not necessarily a voice. I still don't know if it was a voice that I heard. Have you ever had a nudge? Or something that just won't go away, or a picture that you see over and over again, or a billboard that's calling you to make a difference somewhere? There's one of those around here right now. That nudge, has that ever happened to you? I believe that's how God works in the world. I believe that that's how the Spirit works in the world. And I think that God is talking to us spiritually through all kinds of avenues, but we are so into our limited vision and plans for our own lives that oftentimes we don't pay attention. The next time that nudge or that voice comes around, I want to encourage you to engage in conversation with that voice. See, throughout history, God's been talking to people through dreams. It started at the very beginning with Jacob, the father of Israel. Jacob's beginning wasn't all that great. Jacob, if you recall, stole the birthright and all the booty, all the money from his brother right at the very beginning of his life. So he had kind of this cloud hanging over him, which I think impacted his conscience quite a bit. So one night he fell asleep and he had a dream, and he dreamed of angels coming from earth to heaven and heaven to earth. Jacob's Ladder, that song. And then another time, it's kind of like a dream, maybe just a daydream, that God sends an angel, and he ends up having this argument with this angel, and he wrestles with the angel, which some believe was God, and takes out his hip, and he can't walk after this encounter with this thing that he doesn't quite understand. See, that dream wouldn't let him go, and sure enough, Jacob was the one who would go on to establish the Israelites, which would in part put us where we are today. There was the other guy, Joseph the guy with the coat of many colors that was just here at Beef and Boards not long ago. He had all kinds of dreams, and he had all kinds of dreams that didn't always have the best of news in them, but important people listened to him, and thank goodness important people listened to him, because in listening to him, he was able to save the nation from a time of famine. These dreams made a difference in the Bible. There's the New Testament Joseph as well, Mary's baby daddy, earthly baby daddy for Jesus, that he had an angel come to him and say, wait a minute, Mary's okay. Love her, care for her, love and care for this child, and name him Jesus. It's not only people in the Bible, but there are people throughout history that have had an impact on history in dreams. Albert Einstein, for years and years, had this dream of him sledding down a hill at this amazing speed, and then speed was so amazing that he became one with the stars, and from that he was able to get the theory for the speed of light. Do you know Paul McCartney? Paul wrote the words and the music, the chord structure for Yesterday in a dream. It all came to him in a dream. So today, I don't care if you're Jacob or Joseph or Einstein or McCartney or me. I believe that God speaks to us, that the Spirit speaks to us in ways that we sometimes try to ignore. And how I know that is through all of these stories I have shared here today. But it's not just the dream, is it? It's the dream that then leads us to action. Ray Kinsella, he was led to put a baseball field in. I was led back to Indianapolis. Joseph was led to be the earthly father of Jesus. That's how dreams work. Now, for those of you who may not have been around, you know the garden, this garden, is the result of a dream. Linda McCoy had a dream some 20 plus years ago about a place where people could gather and experience their faith and their spirituality in a place other than the church. It was a place where people could experience the unconditional love of God in and among a community of faith. During that time, there actually were services out there called seeker services, and the intention was that a community like this would then move into a church. But the thing about the garden was it was so unique with its secular music and video clips and its openness to all people that people never really made their way over to the church. The garden became the garden, a beautiful community that started with a vision in a dream. I give God thanks that Linda had that dream, and I give God thanks that she acted on it. And she surrounded herself with people that really indeed have created this place called the garden. But the dreams didn't stop there, did they? The dreams kept going, and soon before Linda's retirement, there was a dream of becoming your own congregation. There was a dream of becoming a United Methodist Church. There was a dream of calling a pastor all the way from Avon who didn't want to come. There were all those dreams. And guess what? Today, in July, we became a chartered United Methodist Church. We lived into that dream. We are our own congregation today. We realized that we had to have a mission statement that would help us into this new reality. So we dreamed of what it could be, and the leadership team a year ago came up with a mission statement, which is that we are an inclusive, Christ-like community where people from many paths gather to explore, engage, and seek inspiration for the transformation of the world through the unconditional love of God. We value things like social justice, outreach, spirituality, inclusiveness, and celebration. That's what this is. A year ago, your board committed to finding a new place for our office space and a new meeting place for all of us. And guess what? In January, we moved into Broad Ripple United Methodist Church. And since that time, we have methodically sought to live in relationship and be in partnership with Broad Ripple in some way. Why? Because we believe we were founded in partnership, and we believe that's part of our DNA. Now, you need to know that the Broad Ripple community is a few years older than us. And sometimes when you're trying to bring communities together that are of different ages, it's very difficult. And so what we want to do is be methodical and prayerful about it. They have a new pastor, your pastor, we're meeting on a regular basis, and we're exploring where God is calling us forth in this partnership. I'm happy to say that the partnership is truly beginning on Christmas Eve. On Christmas Eve, we will worship with Broad Ripple. We will meet here in the morning, because Christmas Eve this year is on a Sunday. We'll meet here in the morning, and we'll worship at our regular times and invite our friends from Broad Ripple here. And then in the evening, our evening services will be in the village at Broad Ripple, at their church there. And together we'll share in a meaningful carol Christmas Eve service with a garden flair to it as well. Not only that, but we'll worship together on New Year's Eve, which is also on Sunday. The theater is not available, so we will meet that morning at Broad Ripple United Methodist Church. Two ways that we're partnering together, and our teams are partnering together, the pastors and the music teams, and we're excited about that. Last year, the board determined that as long as we are blessed with this incredible space and the generosity of the Stark family, we wish to be here at Beef and Boards, and we'll continue to meet here as long as we're blessed with that opportunity. Not only that, but we will continue to offer worship that speaks to the common culture, using music, as we always have, secular music, movie clips, and messages. We'll continue to seek ways to improve this experience, seeking excellence in a variety of different ways. We'll continue to seek to reach out with our celebration or our worship. And we've started to do so with this service called Mevo, which is that little black box that sits there. This is an absolutely free service that runs a program on Facebook Live, and people can tune in from wherever they are on their Facebook page. In addition to that, you'll still be able to get messages on thegardenonline.org on a weekly basis, for they'll continue to be downloaded there. As I said, we've recently put together a team to ensure that we're offering worship experiences in excellence, and indeed that we are being the best that we can be. The one thing I love about Beef and Boards Dinner Theater is it always is reinventing itself with every show. It's always bringing something new to us. That's why they have succeeded in the fashion that they have. If you saw West Side Story, it fits in the common culture by the way those kids performed it and by the way it all came down, and the music was amazing. And the conversation in our family after that was about how the same issues still exist today as when Bernstein wrote it so long ago. That's the same kind of energy we need here at the Garden. It's an energy that we don't get too comfortable with the way we do things, with the way that we are church, that we continue to speak and seek excellence in worship. Another thing that we've heard from folks is you really appreciate the opportunities to have some folks come in who are making a difference in the world in different ways. Names like when we had Carrie Newcomer here and Phil Gully have come up. People who Mayor Hogsett, those folks that are speaking into the common culture, you want to see them here, and we're going to do our best to get them back here. Not only that, but names like Krista Tippett came up, and John Cougar Mellencamp, no pressure, Troy. All these different things came up about who can come here and speak at the Garden in a way that will make a difference in the community. So this is your opportunity to get out your pen for the first time. I left mine over there. Get your pen out. Who do you want to hear here? Who do you want to see here? Who do you think could make a difference in this community by speaking to us? Go ahead and write it down on your connection card and let us know, and we'll put that into the hopper. Next weekend, we're going to welcome musician Donna Orsa and speaker Megan Jessup, and they're going to share in some incredible music and then some challenging stories about the difficulties in the world today with human trafficking. Outreach is so important to us here at the Garden that we have to find ways to continue to impact the world. This conversation, we pray, will not only bring awareness to us, but will call us to action and the recognition of this terrible thing that's happening in our world. We determined last year, so that's Sunday morning, we determined last year that we want to participate in programming that will make a difference as well. And in the past year, we've had a great programming team that has done a lot of work to put together a structure in which we can participate in programming. Some of the programming that has already happened has been discussion groups, book studies, the SHAPE group. We've had over 25 people experience the SHAPE program to explore what their specific gifts and talents are and how God is calling them to work in this community as well as in the world. We've had an On Being discussion group. We've done some programs, and let me tell you, particularly the On Being group was just, 3 of us had a great time. So that's my way of saying we'll put together programming, but we want you to be there. If it's not something you want, then why should we be programming it? Or if it's at the wrong time, we can put it someplace else. So now is pen opportunity number 2. What programming do you want? What are you interested? What's important to you? What do you want to be part of? in transforming the world with the unconditional love of God? Tell us, and we'll work it out. Our board has committed to finding ways to make the community work. The leadership team had a retreat a couple of weeks ago, and included in our time together was a surprise celebration for Mike Hurdle and Mike Ransom, who have provided leadership for this community for years and years and years. Mike Ransom has worked tirelessly on marketing. Mike Hurdle has been the GLT chair, and he has more charts and spreadsheets on how this place works than anybody I have ever experienced in my whole life. With their retirement, our new leadership team has come to realize how important that foundational work was. So that's the next thing that we're dreaming about, leadership. Leadership. Pen opportunity number 3. If you're interested in leadership here at the Garden, we're interested in talking to you as well. Now, what does it take to be part of a leadership team here at the Garden? To be on the GLT, the Garden Leadership Team, is a 3-year commitment. We have come to the realization that many of our participants are not always living here, and we have found a way to work that out. We have one team member of the GLT who will be serving and working with us. Part of her time she'll be in Florida. But that's the reality of this community. So we're going to find a way to make it work. I mean, FaceTime, of course, you can FaceTime into a meeting from anywhere. So we're excited to work on that. So what does it take? It takes a 3-year commitment to serve on leadership team, and then also a commitment to serve in a ministry area that you feel called to serve in, because it's important for all of the ministry, from outreach to finance to everything in between, that has a voice to come back to the leadership team. So it's pen time if you're interested in that. Another thing you'll notice is that the members of our leadership team want to connect with you. We have come to realize that we are a community that we know each other's faces, but we don't know each other's names. So in the year to come, the leadership team is going to be taking time in between services to get to know you. Mike Hurdle did that single-handedly for a number of years. We're going to do it together in the years to come. So don't be surprised if there is an extra friendly person coming to your table in the next few weeks. If you don't want to talk to him, just do this and keep going. Then finally, community development. We've come to realize that we, in order to grow into this next stage of our being, need to figure out how to be community. And it's very difficult to do it when you're rolling over a service as quickly as we are. We're going to find ways to use the in-between service time much more effectively. And then we realize that Broad Ripple just isn't necessarily a good fit for everybody. So we'll be looking for some fellowship space in and around the area here, because we hope that's what you're looking for as well. We're going to find ways to continue to collaborate with the Spiritual Life Center, with Broad Ripple, as I said, and we're going to continue to find ways to connect as community. I'm so thankful for those of you who have opened up your homes and continue to build community in those small groups. The Roths have been amazing about that, Carol's book study, and then they've invited the hospitality teams over. You know, you can do that too. If there's somebody sitting near you that you have been worshiping with for years and years, well, invite them over. Have a meal together. Get to know one another a little bit better. We also want to encourage people to get engaged in different ways. We have a trip coming up to Fort Myers. It's an amazing time. I encourage everybody to think about it. You can volunteer at Soups On just this next weekend, and then in the weeks to come, we will be collecting laundry baskets as a way of fellowship and connecting as community for Fletcher Place. In the Field of Dreams movie, Ray Kinsella keeps hearing a voice over and over again. If you build it, he will come. The voice keeps repeating because Ray doesn't believe it the first time he hears it. It takes time. It takes time, and it takes energy, and it takes listening so the voice can sink in. The amazing thing is, when he finally follows that voice, he finds this thing through the process called joy. He finds this thing called meaning. Friends, if you don't have joy in your life right now, if you don't have meaning in your life right now, something tells me you have stopped listening. God is speaking. God is speaking into your life, into your dreams, into your daydreams, into your nudges in some way or another. Today I'm suggesting that you dream big and that you go for it, and that indeed you're moved to action, because in moving to action you might just find heaven on earth, or Iowa.